When Jenna loses her parents in a tragic accident, their lives in Washington's Snoqualmie Valley change in unexpected ways. Despite the changes, Jenna still finds love with a mysterious young man she once believed was Hannah's imaginary friend. Tall, dark, and hairy, Adam brings to light rumors of Bigfoot. Can science explain his appearance? Is he really a supernatural creature like some people propose, or is he just as human as anyone else? Age old fears and superstitions revive myths and reveal ancient secrets. But is there any truth to the tales? What's awaiting to be unveiled in the forests of Snoqualmie? Julie Northup, the author of the Snoqualmie Valley Sasquatch series, is our guest today. And in addition to hearing some more about her books, she will share some of her publishing insights as well. Don't go away. We will be right back. If you're just joining us, then you are watching the Writers' Corner live show. I'm your host, Brigitte Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa, and our stream is made possible by StreamYard, BeLive Media, and Creative Edge. A special warm welcome to you, our viewers, on Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Do know that this is an audience-centric show, and the comments are being monitored. We will not ignore you. We will acknowledge you. So please do say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. If you are brand new to the Writers' Corner live show, then type new in the comments, and then we can give you a shout out and say hello. Our amazing guest today is Julie Northup. But before we bring Julie onto the show, I want to also say a warm welcome to my friend and co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She's a special needs and disabilities advocate and also the award-winning author of the Poolicious children's book series. And just like that, let's say a warm welcome to Mary.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, and yourself?
I'm great. And I have to tell you, I'm so excited about having Julie on. She's so amazing. But I'm excited because I'm a huge Sasquatch fan. Huge. Because you know how, we grew up about the same time and in life, and we were born around the same time. And so I do you remember all the big deal, the shows when we were kids about the sighting, and it was the same video sighting of him, and it was like in the woods of California. You were terrified, but it was still so cool. And then now they, for the last 10 years or whatever, they have a show. I don't even know what network it's on, but it's, Bigfoot, Finding Bigfoot. And I tell you what, we got into that years ago. I mean, we made Bigfoot snacks. The neighbors came over. We did the Bigfoot calls. We had a blast with it. So,
well, I just want to say that is a American thing, and since we are an international show, let me just tell everyone who doesn't know, Sasquatch is Bigfoot.
Yes, tall, dark, and hairy, just like she said, right?
So just wanted to make that clear there so that everyone knows exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, and also that the Snoqualmie is a city next to the Snoqualmie Falls in King County, Washington in the USA. So if you don't know what the context is of Snoqualmie, that's where it is. It's in the United States. Because I had to go and look it up. I didn't know either. And if I didn't know, I figure the rest of the people watching outside of the US doesn't know as well. So just a bit of context there.
And you don't think about that when you're in your own country. You think that it's like, you just think that everyone knows about it because those world phenomenon type thing usually is, it's like there's the, you've got the Yetis, and the abominable snowman, and you know what I mean? So anyways, yes, it is I guess an American thing and pop culture.
I know. I'm always, whenever I put together a show, I'm always looking for things that I think, do people in the rest of the world know about it? Would somebody in India know? Would somebody in Australia know? And so I always try and gather some context, because often I don't know. I'm not in the United States either, so I'd like to just provide some bit of a context. So Julie is from Minnesota, but she now lives in Wisconsin in the US. And she tells us that she finds the whole process of writing, editing, formatting, getting the artwork for the book cover, deciding on the book cover, reviewing everything and putting the whole thing together. She finds that process quite fascinating. And I think it's great that we get to talk to her, because as a new author, it's a very daunting process, because it's something that you haven't yet gone through. And so I think, one always has a lot of questions when you start writing, like, how do I do this? How do So I think Julie is going to be just the right person to give us a little bit of insight on that process. So looking forward to talking to her. So with that, shall we just invite her onto the screen?
Hi, Julie.
Hi, ladies. How are you today?
We're good. We're so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Hey, I know we have questions for you. Where did your fascination come with Sasquatch to begin with, even, right, Brigetti?
I've always loved him. I mean, exactly what you were saying, Mary, that growing up, I remember, the whole Sasquatch.
Yeah, the pose. Yeah. There's the one picture in the pose. I know. We should have put it up on the screen. I didn't even think about that.
Right. I used to watch In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy.
Yes.
That was my show.
Yes.
And I remember as a kid, those things terrified me, but it was also like
fascinating.
But also the more I knew, the more powerful I felt. Like, knowledge is power. Like, I felt empowered against my fears. So I felt like the more I understood, so myth and lore and legend always was something that intrigued me. And so especially like the Native American aspect of it. And so that's also what I took for this particular aspect of the book, was the Native American take on Sasquatch, which is why it's set in Snoqualmie. And so that's really where it came from. It just kind of spurred out of that myth and that fear.
That's beautiful.
And we're saying hello to one of your colleagues, Kaz.
Hi, Kaz.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kaz.
It's always so nice to see new people in the audience. I just love that. It gives me an absolute kick to see new people. So thank you for joining us. So tell us, Julie, how did you go from becoming an author to becoming a book publisher, or was it the other way around? Like, which came first?
Chicken or the egg?
Yeah. Actually, being an author came first, and I got involved with a small press, and I started to kind of get more involved in the behind the scenes. And I'm a true believer, again, knowledge is power. So I wanted to understand everything about my industry as much as I could. And having that understanding just kind of led more to the technical side. And I just found that I was really fascinated by it, and it helped to enhance the creative elements to it for me. So it just seemed like a natural step forward.
That's good. And you can take that's the good thing about being on both sides. Like with live streaming, Brigetti can do both sides, I can do both sides, but it actually, it helps you to do it better. It's like an actor who becomes a filmmaker, they can add so much more depth to everything. And so I know Brigetti said that for new authors, it's daunting, the whole process, but I'm not sure that dauntingness ever leaves when there's so many moving parts to get a book go, to have it come around. At least you know it's coming, but it still is. Some of it's really a challenge. And editing, I think, is quite a challenge for most people. So, but what exactly does the publishing process? This is like kind of probably, I don't know, it's not a quick answer, but involved from editing, formatting your book, choosing the cover, etc. And I know for each publisher, it's going to be different for how an author, how long they should expect, that going back and forth with all those decisions. And a good publishing company, or even if you hire one person, they should be very good with communication and letting you know a timeline. So an author knows, okay, so here are my corrections that I need to approve or add more, and I've got 10 days to do it in,
Right. You hit the nail on the head when you said it really depends on the structure of the press. And it really also will depend on the, I don't want to say the skill set, but really the skill set of who you're working with. And if you don't have the right editor with the right author too, that makes a difference, because you have to have, that really is such an intimate relationship between author and editor, because there's such a connection between that style and that voice and that communication. But if I were to give a generic answer, I would say it's going to take a couple months. Quite honestly, it's not something that you can expect to happen in a matter of days, just because it's such an intricate process. Because just the editing alone is where you're going to put most of your time and effort into if you want a quality book. Because you're looking at syntax, you're looking at more than just typos. You're looking at flow, you're looking at consistency. And the job of the editor is to go back and make sure that you have accuracy of data, that if somebody says this city is here and it's an actual city, that's actually that city. If somebody says, you're looking at words, because you don't want to have repeat words. Like sometimes there's certain hot words that people use as filler words. You want to make sure you're not using that kind, and if you have too many ands, then
it's obnoxious.
Yeah, it makes a difference. Or
that's how we talk. That's
exactly.
The problem. It's the way we talk, right, Brigetti? Because we could say, and I did this, and I did that, and I did that, but you can't write it that way.
And there is a difference between narrative and there's a difference between dialogue. And you also have to look at what's happening between the tempo of what you're setting up for narrative, as well as what you're setting up for character voice. So those are all things that even though the author is setting up and creating, the editor actually has to go back and make sure that all of that is consistent and all of that is flowing. There's no plot holes. Like if you said this person took off their jacket here, 4 paragraphs down, they're not retaking that jacket off again.
Right. So when you're looking at just getting the editing done, is that typically one editor, or do you have more than one editor? And is that typically something, an editor, someone that you as the publishing house decides on as part of the package?
For me personally, in our setting, we do it as a collaborative, but how we set it up is we have a primary editor that works with the author, because for consistency and for flow, you want to keep one main editor for the project, especially if it's a series, to make sure, because they're going to be very intimate with those characters and with that storyline and with that series. And they're going to know how to work with that author. And then what we do is from there, we pass it out to the rest of our team, and then we get additional feedback from that, because each of us have something different that we look at from the standpoint of a reader. And that also gives us a different standpoint as an editor. So we have, one person on our team is really good at finding the plot holes. One person on our team is constantly asking, well, why would this character do this? Because they're so good at like, I want to know what makes this character drive. Another person will find every typo you've ever made.
But there's always one that somebody misses.
But that's
so
why
do you typically
important.
So do you typically have a group of test readers as well that'll read advanced copies, that'll give input into the editing process?
Yes, she does. So, and that's good. You want that, you need that.
Beta readers are so important. And I think that's as like a new author, you don't realize how important beta readers are and how important those arcs are. I know when I was first coming into the industry, I was like, oh, I get to share my stories. I'm so excited. And I put it up there. And even when I got my first publisher, they really, in my opinion, failed me because they didn't do all the steps that should have been done. We didn't have the quality checks. We didn't have the proper editing. We didn't have the beta readers. I didn't even know what that was. So books were put up and they weren't clean. And so readers are getting these books and they're like, this is spelt wrong. This is wrong. And now we have the ability to get direct feedback from readers. Are able to even go through, like, you can mark it on your Kindle and then Amazon will alert you, hey, there's a quality issue, and you can go in and fix it.
That's great.
Yeah, they have that ability. They didn't have that in the beginning. And, small presses and early indie in that movement weren't helping you, and that was really a failing. But what we've gone to is we went from the indie movement being a fad to being the business it's supposed to be. So now it is the business it's supposed to be. And the people that really care are putting all of those checks in place. And they understand these are important things you have to do to make sure that you have a quality product for readers.
And especially if you're going to charge. So what do you think is, what are the benefits of going with a traditional publisher or as opposed to self-publishing? Because there's good and bad with both. So
the biggest thing really is marketing and reach. I've talked with I have friends and I've interviewed people from both sides of the spectrum. And I think that the main thing is what your goal is as an author, of what you're trying to accomplish. And, are you just wanting to get your stories out there? Are you trying to be the next Stephen King? Are you, what is your ambition as an author? Because it's
so wide open now.
Yeah.
I mean, you have 50 Shades of Grey, right? Mm-hmm. They were self-published and they were at a book festival, and literary agent was walking around looking for people, found them, and boom, next thing you know, it's turned into a movie. And this was a self-published author who was a nobody. So It's just so crazy. There's no rhyme or reason. And no matter if you go self-publish or traditional publish, you still have to work. You have dedication, time, years, and know that, if this is what you want to do, you got to put something into it.
Exactly. And the biggest thing is what I've heard from a lot of traditionally published authors too, is that they are looking more towards the indie movement and more actually smaller presses, because why that seems to be more of the thing is you still have more control. That's the biggest reason why people are going more towards the smaller presses, like Norns Triad, which is what I have, is because you maintain that control. Once you get into the traditional, you don't have a say in your cover. You don't have a say in your blurbs. You don't have a say, once it gets to them, it's theirs.
And you can't just pick up the phone and talk to your publisher. That's what I'm grateful for with Tuscany Bay Books. Jim called me yesterday. We just chatting about stuff, what he's working on. And that means a whole lot when you've been with another publisher. I have, and it was not a good experience. And so there's a lot to be said for that smaller environment and that relationship, that trust.
Yes. And that's a huge thing. The trust factor, the availability, and the control over your own art, and having that, because your name is on that, that's your brand. That's, you know what I mean? That's, people are going to know your name. And I wanted control of that. Like I say, my initial publisher, I felt failed me because that wasn't having the quality checks that was out there. Now, if it's lacking quality, that's on me, but I also have the means to go in and fix that. Whereas if it went through somebody else, I wouldn't have necessarily had that ability to do that. So you have to make sure that who you're picking and who you're going with also make sure that don't take the control from you. Make sure that they don't take your rights from you. That's a huge thing.
Right. So tell me a little bit about that. So if I'm a new author and I'm wanting to get published, do you kind of have a checklist of questions that I should be answering, myself before I make a decision? Because you can go with a publisher and regret your decision.
Yeah.
And also, should one build in a clause to get out?
Yes.
Because if things don't go the way that you anticipated, there could be nothing worse, because it can be very, very damaging to your book if you can't get out of it and you've lost control.
A legit contract will have that in there. A good contract will have that particular thing in there. And Brigetti brings up a good point. What are the things that we look for and should look for in a contract between a publisher and an author, whether it's a small or large, and then you need to have that right to negotiate back and forth, Brigetti, to say, okay, so 1A says this, is this what you mean? Or can we add this in? Because I've done that several times. And you definitely want to keep your rights. You want to make sure that's in the contract, that you keep your copyrights will revert back to you, like at the ending of the contract with a publisher. But you also want to keep the rights to any film, TV, any products that come from the line. You want to make the money off that and not the publisher.
You have to have it specified between digital rights,
right?
Paperback rights, audiobook rights. There's merchandising. All of that makes a difference. You have to make sure that that's all specified, because it's all money making, and they all have different rights to them.
I almost feel like you need an advisor almost when you are deciding you're deciding on a publisher, because for a lot of people, some people may be able to churn out books at a large rate. Some people may write one book and it becomes a bestseller, but if they've gone with a wrong publisher, they could be losing out. They could have made a very bad financial decision if they didn't know about all these clauses to look for. So I almost feel like one needs a consultant of some sorts that could advise especially a new author, and say, look, before you decide, let me have a look over the contract for you, to see if it's in your best interests. And if things go pear-shaped, or if it's a success, these are the clauses that you need revised, or this is what you must have in your contract. So I think it's a very, very important role. And I like the point that you made, that a smaller indie publisher, you definitely have a lot more control than if you go with a big publisher. Yes, there's benefits, but I think maybe a big publishing house is possibly where you should go if you already are an established author.
Yeah, I think too, if your goal is to be more of a I just want to focus on my writing, that's my main goal, then a big publisher is what you want to do, because they're going to do more of the marketing, the campaigning, the promotional elements for you. Whereas when you're in a smaller environment, more of that falls onto you. But that's not to say that, even though you're traditional, you're not going to have that, because more and more that is falling on to the author as well, because you have to be accessible to your readers. Because it's kind of like when you look at a movie and you're like, ooh, Ryan Reynolds, you're like, I don't care what movie he's in, I love him, I'm going to go see that. You have that same thing with an author. I don't care what Stephen King wrote, it's Stephen King, I'm going to read it. So you're also selling yourself as well as your work. So you have to have that, you have to let your reader know who you are as well. So you do still have to have that element of connectivity and availability to your readers. But there's a difference in marketing and promotion between the big traditional and the smaller publishing. That's one of the biggest choices you're going to end up making.
Is that something that you advise your authors on? Because I find, irrespective of what you do, whether you're an author or you sell pencils, it really doesn't make a difference. But because people seem to have this notion when it comes to marketing, when my book is published, I will focus on marketing. But that marketing journey should really start way before your book is published.
Yeah, about 3 months ahead of time. You had to do a campaign even longer than that. And there you can find, I'm sure there's lists out there. If you're a newbie, you could find a marketing list and promotion list somewhere at YouTube or whatever, Google, But Julie, maybe that's something you need to write next.
I'm actually thinking, it needs to be, apart from the traditional sort of 3 months. As you mentioned, Julie, you're not just necessarily marketing that book, you're marketing yourself so that people will read simply because it's you. Correct. So that process, as they say in marketing, the know, like, and trust factor, is something you can't even build in 3 months. It takes a very, very long time. So it's relationship marketing that you really need to do way before your book.
Yeah, a lot of networking too. I mean, Julie and I met through the press release of my book, because Julie is a huge champion of authors and promoting their books coming out and sharing it with others. And so she's just a huge asset to authors, and we need support. She needs support in what she does, so she continues to have clients. But also authors need support in so many different ways. We need a lot of cheerleaders going, yeah, that book's great and they're awesome. And, hey, let's connect you with this person to see what happens. And, it's all this whole support thing. And I know in the 3 years we've been doing this show, because we just went over our 3-year mark, the networking that's happened has been amazing. And just the connections that Brigetti and I have made has just been wonderful. And the relationships, right? I mean, sometimes we just call an author up, and, every once in a blue moon, we might need an author on the show and say, hey, what are you doing? Can you come on Tuesday? We want to know what you're doing, catching up, and we like to follow everyone's career as best we can, don't we?
Absolutely. So Julie, just tell us a little bit about the Snoqualmie Valley Sasquatch series. How did you decide on making that a 2-book series instead of just 1 book? Like, just give us the reasoning behind that. And I just want to give a shout out to Freddie and Tish, who's also watching us on Amazon. Welcome to you. Just give us a bit of insight on like, if someone is writing a book, how do you decide? And is that meant for an experienced author? Just give us some insight on that.
Sometimes ahead of time, just because you have the story inside you and you know that it's going to be bigger than just what 1 book could do. It'd be too daunting for 1 book. And then other times it just kind of explodes as you're going. I'm kind of in between the seat of my pants writing and the plotter, because I start going and then the characters start talking to me. I'm that middle of the night psychotic person that the voices don't shut up and you have to get up.
That makes for a good book, though.
Yeah, exactly. So this one I kind of knew because it's it just kind of had a life of its own, and it's still whispering to me. So I don't know that it's just going to be 2 books. I don't know. I just, it's the time thing. Do I have the time to sit down and get it all out?
But that's very clever, because you've called it a series. So you've kind of opened yourself up to the possibility of going beyond 2 books, and it won't be too much of a big deal, because a series can be any amount of books. So that was very clever.
Well, and it's also a good marketing tactic for an author, because most publishers don't want a one-hit wonder. They want a series, because they're like, oh, I'm seeing dollar signs and a future and a relationship with this author. They're not going to come and go in the night. So, but also, doesn't it have to do, Julie, don't you think, with numbers, like the amount of numbers in a book? We remember, Virginia, Daniel, I think was his name, or I think it's David. Remember, he had been writing for like 20 years or something, and his book was so big. He had like 200,000 words. And so the publisher was like, nope, got to cut it down and make it into 2 or 3. So
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
We were both like, it took you how long? You had how many words?
Yeah, definitely.
David McDaniel.
David McDaniel. Yeah, we love David. I think he just released his 3rd book, or he's getting ready to. We need to chat with him again. But yeah, that was amazing. And and I know that it's like, my daughter is writing her YA novel. She's at 54,000 words, and I'm like, are you close to the end? Are you close to the end? Have you gotten to the, are you at the climax? The plot, has it happened yet? I'm almost there. So it's just amazing. So yeah, she's like you.
Good. That's good, because
it's
once
great.
you get there, you kind of, that's the whole thing. Get it out and then reassess.
Yeah.
That's part of the process too, I think. Like,
so at what point? At what point, Julie, do you think you should hand it over to the publisher or the editor? I mean, do you wait until you kind of like, okay, I'm done with this, or like, how do you decide when you should hand it over to your publisher?
And that actually, in my opinion, and other people may have different experiences, depending on how their relationships are with theirs. In my experience, especially with Norns Triad Publications, what we try to do is, by the time it gets to me as an editor and I'm doing content editing and stuff, it should be pretty finalized once it gets to that point. But there are steps and stuff that happen before, where as a team, we collaboratively support each other. So we're always available to discuss plot and to discuss character building and to go through that element. And I'm always, I'm available when I'm working with an author to help with that developmental editing, and to help with that really questioning different things, because that's where that whole magic happens. That's where the team happens, where each person is looking at it with a different thing. Because if one person is asking a question about something, if they're asking it, there's going to be a reader out there that's asking it. So even if you don't go anywhere with it, or if it's not really necessary to the story, or it's just a question that somebody's curious about, by asking that, you're inspiring it.
And are you, as a publisher, also the sort of coordinator or peacemaker? Like, what if this is the feedback you're getting from all the editors and the readers, and your author says, no, I'm not changing that. Like, how do you deal with that when the author just digs their heels in and say, I'm not changing that, but your gut says this is a mistake?
What we do for our company, how we have it set it up, we've set it up that we've said, this is your art. Ultimately, your name is on it. Ultimately, the character, the story. Ultimately, you have the final say. So even though we come with the editing and we say, from our experience, our knowledge, our technical aspects of this, this is what we're suggesting to you. We can support this by this. We can't give you a suggestion if we can't back it up. If, this is why we're telling you this particular thing. Ultimately, though, it's up to the author to make the final call. And if we feel like it's an integrity thing, if we feel like it's a quality thing, that it's, in the end, the publisher has the right to not publish it.
Right.
So it's that give and take. So I've never had an author who's not cared enough about their book to try to do something that's going to make their book better.
That's good.
So,
That's
right.
good. So do you have any gold nuggets? Let's see. We like gold nuggets to give to our audience and anyone out there who has, thinking about getting published, hasn't even started writing, thinking about it, or somebody who's even, I don't know, this might cover too many people, but, had a bad experience and they've decided to give up, so do you have any gold nuggets?
We all have those days where we feel like, why am I doing this? And my gold nugget is exactly what you were saying. That's where the networking and the community comes in. This community is amazing. This is why I do what I do and why I love what I do, because there is so much support and care amongst all of us, because we're readers first and foremost. And we love books. We love writing. We love sharing the story. And that's what it comes down to. And as long as you remember that's the focus, and you remember that, the people who are giving you critique are there because they genuinely care and want it to be,
they come from a good place.
Yeah. And they're not trying to hurt you, then you're going to get through it. And you're going to remember that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Nobody likes to hear negative feedback, but there's going to be negative feedback. There's always going to be somebody who's going to like what you do, and there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like what you do.
Right.
So do you kind of prepare people for, like, when you start engaging with a new author, do you kind of prepare them and say, listen, the beta readers are going to get hold of your book, and there are chances that they're going to disagree with some things or give you negative feedback. Do you kind of emotionally prepare them for that? Because I don't think any new author is kind of ready for that onslaught of feedback that they may be getting.
I prepare them for me. I'm the worst.
Wait, what did you tell me? What did you tell me? You said something. So you felt compelled to tell me. Yes. So yeah. And I'm open to constructive criticism because in working, because of working, and like Bridgetti and I have partnership. I have partnership with Thornton. We have to work together. So in order to make those situations work, you have to be open to hearing constructive criticism, because it's only there to make your book better. Or unless you're, with somebody who's just a horrible person, they're just mean to you. You don't want that. But but a good person can offer constructive criticism. And Thornton and I do it. He'll send me a song, like he's got 3 number ones, and he'll send me the things that, okay, how does this sound? And recently he was working on one, and I was like, okay, these 2 lines have got to go. Let's rework it. And he and I went back and forth, and it's like, okay, now it works, but he's open to it. And so am I. And we go back and forth with it, just like you probably do. And, Bridgetti and I, we go back and forth on things together, but it works because we're both willing to, we know it's for the better, greater good. Right. It's not, there's no harm or intention there at all. So,
exactly.
Nobody's going to say to you, you suck. Okay. We don't want to hear that. And, we don't want to be the one to say that, but, hey, let's kind of tweak this a little bit and see if we can put some different sentences here or whatever. So, and so I'm always grateful for it, because I hope it makes things better.
Me too. And I want that. What I give, I also want back. I think that's the thing too, is that people have to remember is that what a lot of authors want is also what they're upset about, because they want that feedback. They want that because that's what's going to make them better. That's what's going to drive them and make them thrive. But it's also incredibly hard because your books are your babies.
Oh, yes, very much. It's such a personal journey. Mm-hmm. Oh, my word. And you get very wounded,
Yeah.
when somebody doesn't see your vision or get what you're going for. But like you said, that's where you have to have a backbone too. You have to be prepared for that, because not everybody's going to like what you're doing. And you just have to know, okay, there's a purpose for this book. There's a purpose for what I'm doing. And I just have to stay the course and just see that light at the end of the tunnel and keep moving forward.
Well, and you have to understand too, you have to separate yourself from true criticism and the trollism.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to be able to accept the criticism and to use that as a tool to better yourself, and to be able to just let go of the negativity that's just there just to be there.
Right. Yeah. And there's always somebody out there who's negative and mean. But Julie, thank you so much for being on. We have to have you on again, because we can talk forever. Can't wait.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I really do. Thank you so much for everything you do and the support you give to our community. Thank you so much.
It's a big pleasure. And your books are both available on Amazon. How many books have you got? How many books have you got in circulation now?
For Norns Triad, we have around 40 books right now. And
wow.
Yeah. And we have like 30 more waiting to come up, but it's just, it takes time. Everything is projected out. So.
Right. That's amazing.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of books. And typically all your books are released on Amazon. Is that correct?
Correct. We are going to be going wide with our standalones, but typically we are going to be keeping the series as a KDP Select, just because that makes it it kind of gives a little bit more tools for us for marketing. So that's why,
So Nords Triad. Right. So Nords Triad. So NORDS Triad.
NORNS. It's actually.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Sorry.
It's Viking.
That's right. Yes.
How did you? I was going to ask you. Is that a play on your name when you came up with Norns Triad as a name for your publishing house?
No, it's actually my one partner and I, who are Sahara Foley and I are actually the legal partners of it. We're both Danish, and so we're Viking, and the Norns are the Triad of Being, and that's the and Marnie Kate, Sahara Foley, and I actually came up with the company and made the company and built the company from the ground up. And so we are the triad that built the company.
Oh, nice. Okay. I've never asked you that question, so I'm glad you explained it to us. So if you're looking for a publisher, you need the Vikings, right?
That's right.
That is amazing. Sometimes we don't realize that, a name may just sound like a name to us, but very often there's a story behind the name. And that is why, storytelling is always so powerful, because when people understand where you're coming from, it's what kind of draws people to you and to your business, so storytelling.
It makes it more valid. It makes you want to be a part of it more and know more about it.
Well, and they weave the stories of people's lives. They're the fates. So that's what the Norns are.
There you go. Oh, I love it. And if you're a Sasquatch
congratulations.
Fan,
thank you.
We need to have a Sasquatch party on Writer's Corner for Jetty.
I am so in.
We need our wood sticks, because we had to bang the sticks together to call in the Bigfoot, and we have to have Bigfoot howl.
Oh.
Julie, thank you so much. I want to just also give a huge big shout out to our amazing audience that has joined us today on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Amazon. It has been great to have you join us. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the comments that you've made. Always appreciative of those comments. We love the interaction. And again, if you're watching this on the replay, type new so that we know who you are, and do give us a follow, because if you do follow, then you get a notification when we go live again. Julie, this was amazing. You've got so many nuggets. We could talk to you for an hour.
Yeah, we should have her back on to discuss, just things about being a publisher and things that they're looking for in a good author and a good book and a good story and all that blah, 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 that could go on and on and on. Right, Julie? Do we need to have her back? We'll have her back for a class, an education class.
We definitely need to have you back, and we'll have 20 questions for you next time. Julie,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank
We'll see you
you.
back next week on the Writers' Corner live show. For now, it's goodbye.